This is the 2018 Point in Time training. My name is Ian Fletcher, and I'm a staff member at Metro Denver Homeless Initiative. I'll be counting during the Point in Time count just like you. And I'm counting because I want to help get a better sense of how people are living unsheltered in our community so we can work to mobilize our resources to serve their needs. This training will review everything you need to know about participating as a volunteer in the 2018 Point in Time count. You'll see that this year we have rebranded and our brand is now called Everyone Counts, Metro Denver's Point in Time Survey. So what is the Point in Time count? The Point in Time is a one-day snapshot of people experiencing literal homelessness. This year, it's occurring on January 29th, 2018, starting at sundown and wrapping up on January 30th at sundown. The point in time is important because everyone counts. It's our responsibility to take note of and take care of the most vulnerable of our fellow citizens. The count is a great opportunity for us to really open our eyes and see people experiencing homelessness in our community in a new light. It provides communities a way to understand trends and respond to the needs of those experiencing literal homelessness. Volunteers include people from the community, including neighborhood residents, students, corporate groups, and others, as well as agencies, service providers, and a variety of other partners make this event a success. Currently, the Point in Time count occurs in all 7 Metro Denver counties: Adams, Arapahoe, Boulder, Broomfield, Denver, Douglas, and Jefferson counties. Why do we conduct a point in time count? Because it helps provide our community with some demographics and characteristics of people who are experiencing literal homelessness in our area. It helps get a sense of service needs and provides the best count for those living outside or who are unsheltered. It educates citizens about the presence of homelessness within their communities and informs funding, policies, programs, and services designed to help people experiencing homelessness. It also helps MDHI, the Continuum of Care, remain competitive for grant funding from HUD and provides numbers needed for other city and county funding or foundation grants all over our community. Finally, it enhances partnerships in the community by creating collaboration during the point in time to support work all throughout the year. HUD requires that the point in time count take place in the last 10 days of January all across the nation. Here in the Metro Denver Homeless Initiative Continuum of Care, we decided to do a blitz count this year, which means we're doing the count over a 24-hour period starting sundown on Monday, January 29th to sundown on Tuesday, January 30th. Years past, we have conducted the point in time count over the course of a week, which has provided challenges when dealing with deduplication, as many of the people that were surveyed multiple times over the course of that week. By having the count take place over a 24-hour period, it helps us refine our volunteer and agency efforts and really hone in on the most appropriate and defined survey structures. So where does the point in time count take place? Well, we're counting people all over our communities. This includes service providers, typically agencies like emergency shelters, day centers, and other locations where people experiencing homelessness are engaged on a regular basis. This year, we have also bolstered magnet events. Magnet meaning drawing people in. These magnet events will be held throughout all of the counties to help draw in people who might be sleeping outside or who are unsheltered, who may not access resources at the typical service providers. So the magnet events will have incentives such as food, showers, laundry, that will invite people to come in just for the day so that they can get counted. While we know not everyone will come in to a magnet event, we have a lot of outreach taking place on the streets and other places not meant for human habitation to identify people who are sleeping outside, such as in their vehicles, in a camp, under bridges, and in green spaces. The community has come together and helped us map out where they know current locations of encampments or people are staying so that we can target our efforts to those particular outreach zones. We're also conducting point-in-time surveys at agencies and locations that interact with people experiencing homelessness, such as libraries and food banks, but that those places may not always just have people experiencing homelessness, so we'll have special events and special determinations to make sure we're only counting people experiencing homelessness at those locations. So your role as a volunteer is to help us survey people. We'll go over the survey later in this training, but depending on where you're at, your role might look different. So if you're at an agency that is an overnight shelter or a day shelter, you'll probably be interviewing people that are staying there for the night or receiving services that day, depending on whether you're volunteering on January 29th or January 30th. If you're volunteering at a Magnet event, you might be surveying people, but you might also be helping with logistics, operations, and helping with serving food or handing out incentives. If you're at an other provider location, such as a library or a food bank, your role is to really survey people and make sure that they're people who are experiencing literal homelessness, as we're not surveying people who might be at risk of homelessness or who are experiencing low income or poverty. If you're on an outreach or unsheltered count, you'll be accompanying staff, typically from people who are already doing unsheltered counts throughout the community throughout the year, and those leads will help to guide how the survey looks for those people who are staying outside. So who are we going to count? You can see here there are two groups we're going to count for the point in time. People who are sheltered, if they're living in a supervised, publicly or privately operated shelter designated to provide temporary living arrangement, including congregate shelters, transitional housing, and hotels and motels paid for by charitable organizations or federal, state, or local government programs for low-income individuals on the night of January 29th. This means that someone who is living in a hotel or motel that they're paying for themselves, they would not be counted in the point in time. So we're only counting people who are staying in a shelter or another place like transitional housing or via a program that's placing them into that temporary housing like a hotel or a motel. We're also counting people who are unsheltered. So that means an individual or family with a primary nighttime residence that is a public or private place not designed for or ordinarily used as a regular sleeping accommodation for human beings, including a car, park, abandoned building, bus or train station, airport or camping ground. So people who are sleeping outside is who we're counting in the unsheltered count on the night of January 29th. It's important to note here that folks that are couch surfing or doubled up are not included in either of these definitions, so we're unable to include them for the purposes of the point in time count, as they are not determined to be literally homeless by HUD's definition. Let's take a look at the survey. If you go to our website, which is everyonecounts.mdhi.org, you're able to download these forms as well, but we'll follow along using the PowerPoint so that you can see specifically how to answer these questions. You'll see on the survey that there's a top part in gray. You can fill this out on your paper surveys should you choose to use this paper survey as a backup. In the event that you need to pre-populate these sections, please complete this whole section so that we know where the survey took place, when it took place, and your name if we have any questions. All volunteers will receive a green Everyone Counts button. We're hoping that this button creates a visual reminder for people who are being surveyed so that they can remember if they've already talked to someone in a green button before. It's because the first question asked is, did another volunteer already survey you? If the person has already been surveyed, they do not need to be surveyed again. If they haven't, that's a great opportunity to continue. The next question is asking, where did you Or where will you spend Monday night, January 29th? Please complete one of these locations so that we can determine where the person stayed. It's really important that you complete one of these locations, as we had to throw out a number of surveys in the past because they weren't complete. Then you'll put in the city and county where you completed the survey. If the person is staying in a place that is not currently listed on question number 2, end the survey, because it means they're not literally homeless. Question number 4 asks, is this your first time you've been homeless? So if the person is homeless for the first time, you'll say yes. If they've been homeless off and on in the past, you'll say no. And if they're not currently experiencing homelessness, you can check that box, but you wouldn't continue with the survey because we're only surveying people who are experiencing homelessness. Question number 5 is, how long have you been homeless this time? Which is essentially getting at, how long have you been homeless for an episode that is currently going on? And so you'll select one of those times. Sometimes, even for questions 5, 6, and 7, people may not remember if they've been in and out of housing, or if they've been incarcerated, or had other opportunities where their homelessness has been interrupted throughout an amount of time. So it's sometimes helpful to break it down. So you could say, how many times were you homeless in 2017? And then add that on to how many times they were homeless in 2016, and how many times they were homeless in 2015. Completing those together gives you how many times they've been homeless in the last 3 years, or how many times they've stayed in shelters or on the streets. Question number 8 is asking about family members or pets or companion animals that stayed in the same place with the person on Monday night. If they're alone, you'll put just me. If they have a partner or spouse with them, identify that. Any children under 18 as a family, or if parents or siblings as a family, as well as a pet or companion animal. You can check all that apply. Then what you'll do is you'll ask them for their first 3 letters of their first name, first 3 letters of their last name, and only need the month and the year of their date of birth. For those of you that have done the point in time before, you'll see that this year we're not asking whether or not they have the last 4 of their social, because we're only doing this over a 24-hour period, and we don't need to get that level of information. So we're hoping that by not asking for the social as well as the complete date of birth, that will provide some continual anonymity for the person and help make them feel more comfortable with completing the survey. Then ask them their gender, their ethnicity, and their race. If they have other members in the family, please complete that same pattern for all of the members in the family. This is really important because this is how we deduplicate all of the surveys. Then, if you're in a large area with a lot of people around, sometimes it can be challenging from a confidentiality standpoint to ask these next questions. So what I like to do is, this is the point where I turn the survey over and show the person that, do any of these apply to you? And they can just point or circle themselves. That would be the only point in doing this survey where you would have the person complete it themselves. I've found that that makes people a little bit more comfortable, rather than saying out loud that they're, for example, currently fleeing domestic violence. You'll see on our definitions page listed on our website that there are additional criteria, for example, for a disability, a serious mental illness, or substance abuse. So if you have any questions about those, please refer to the definitions page on the website for which of those might apply depending on the person's situation. When it is not practical or safe to interview, there is an option for refusal or observation. It cannot be included in the final numbers, but it provides more context for the people that we're working with so that we know where they might be staying and what some of the barriers might be. So an observation would be, for example, if someone is sleeping and you are in a shelter or you're outside, we ask that you don't wake them. So you can just look and see where they're staying, and you can kind of assess if they have anyone else with them. Another reason would be a refusal. So you can go up to a person and they say they don't want to do it, absolutely not. And so you can just identify exactly where they're staying and if they had anyone with them. A person can refuse any particular question on the point in time, but the more questions that are refused, the less likely it is that we're able to actually use their aggregate data in the final report. So please encourage people, if they are able, to complete all of the questions, because everything is anonymous and none of the information is tracked back to them as an individual. Observations and refusals will probably happen more frequently for people that are doing an unsheltered count, mostly because of the conditions that people are staying in. The most important thing to remember is to trust your gut. Your safety is very important, so please don't risk your safety just to get a survey result. You can do an observation if someone is too inebriated or aggressive to engage in an interview, if they're refusing at the beginning or refusing to continue partway through the survey, if they're asleep, if they appear to be working, such as distributing drugs or engaging in sex work, or if they're unable to be surveyed for any other reason. If someone is under 24 and refuses to answer the point in time survey, it's okay to go ahead and ask them the answer to the youth specific questions, which are on the youth supplemental survey. This year, we are excited to announce to the whole community that we have a mobile survey. We're asking that anyone that is able to, please prioritize using the mobile survey on your smartphone, tablet, or on a laptop or computer over Wi-Fi. This allows us to address a number of issues related to data quality, such as illegibility, as well as it helps us not have to enter the data from the paper surveys into the data system as it's automatically uploaded. The mobile survey link here is a practice link, but if you visit the everyonecounts.mdhi website, that will have the link, the live link, the day of the point in time survey that you can access and enter in your information. This survey has predictive logic, which means it won't ask you questions and won't continue if the questions don't make sense. Additionally, it uses GPS if you have a smartphone or tablet with cellular service to track the location, specifically just the city and county, so we know exactly where that happens, as sometimes unsheltered outreach workers might be moving between cities and counties on their way. Please make sure if you are using the mobile survey that your phone or tablet is fully charged and that you do have a couple of paper surveys as backup in case there are technology or other issues as a result of the digital survey. You will see here, this is an example of what the digital survey looks like. It is a web link, so you don't need to download an app of any kind. You just have to have access to an internet browser. And all of the information is automatically uploaded into our server, so we don't have to enter in the data manually. If you are surveying a youth who is unaccompanied and they are under the age of 25, that means 24 or under, please try to get them to also complete the youth survey, which is a supplemental survey. While the point in time is reported to HUD, the supplemental youth survey supports our statewide efforts around unaccompanied youth homelessness. You'll see here some of the questions are the same as the point in time count questions, but some of them are additional and different and help us get to the demographics and needs specifically related to unaccompanied youth. Only do the supplemental youth survey after you've completed the point in time survey. Please note that while the point in time survey is available on the web, the supplemental youth survey is not. And so the only way to submit a supplemental youth survey is via a paper version. So even if you're using your tablet or phone as the mobile version for the point in time survey, please have printed copies for the supplemental youth survey in the event that you encounter an unaccompanied youth. One specific thing to note for the supplemental youth survey is because these numbers are not being reported to HUD, we are able to count a youth that is couch surfing, as we know that the incidences of couch surfing and doubling up is frequent for unaccompanied youth. We'll go over some scripting language that might be helpful for you later in the training, but some things to keep in mind when you're doing this survey. Approach and survey people in a respectful manner. Ask the questions as they're written. Participation is voluntary, so it's important that you ask the person for their consent to ask these questions. Any of the survey questions can be refused, and no services will be refused if they're not participating, such as at a location or a magnet event. Anybody who's being surveyed and you as a volunteer have incentives, please offer those incentives prior to participating in the survey. They don't have to do the survey in order to receive the incentive. And finally, when you're done with the survey, so either you've finished it on the paper copy or you're ready to hit submit, please check for data quality prior to submitting. We get a lot of surveys that we have to throw away because they're not filled out completely, or the handwriting is illegible, or for other reasons. And so it's really important that prior to giving these to your point of contact or submitting them into the database, that you check for data quality. Things not to do. Don't ever hand out a stack of surveys and pens and then say, please fill this out and give them back to me. Don't push the survey on someone who doesn't want to talk. Don't push to get specific answers if someone is very clearly not interested in answering them. Also, don't identify people who you might think may be homeless or draw unnecessary attention to them, especially in areas where people experiencing homelessness may be mixed in with other people who are not. Also, if you have valuables such as a purse, please leave it in your vehicle or in another place prior to working or volunteering at a specific site. Additionally, please respect the privacy of those you are surveying as well as those around them. So if you're in an agency with a lot of people around, talk quietly or try to find a location where there's a little bit more privacy when asking these questions. All of the information that you collect during the point in time is to be kept confidential. You must obtain consent by asking, may I ask you some questions? And if they say yes, you can continue. But if they're adamant that they not get surveyed, that's totally okay. You can take photos of your group of volunteers if they consent, but please don't take any photos of people experiencing homelessness or the locations where they may be residing. Additionally, always remember that the people you are surveying are experiencing homelessness, which is inherently traumatic. Recognizing your shared humanity is a key to a successful surveying experience for everyone. In order to do the survey, we've provided you with a couple of examples of how to start the conversation. So you can approach someone, ask them how they're doing, and immediately it's really great if you can offer an incentive. So, hi, how are you tonight? Would you like some hand warmers? My name is Ian, and I'm hoping to talk with people who are sleeping out here. I'm with a group doing a survey to try to get a sense of how many people are sleeping out on the street so that we can get awareness of gaps in services and assess community needs. Have you talked to anyone today in a green button like this? The survey is about 5 minutes long. Is that something you'd be interested in doing? Or may I ask you a few questions about your experience? By providing the time of the survey, it helps give people the expectation of how long it should take, as well as in the event that you have to redirect someone, it lets them know that the amount of time is pretty short. And so one of the redirect examples is, I really appreciate you doing this survey and sharing your experience with me. I do have some other areas to cover, or, I only have a couple of minutes with you. So can we continue to the next question? And then when you're done, always just thank people for their time and for sharing the information. If you have resource cards, that would be a great time to offer them to them as well. We're not expecting that you provide resources to anybody, but that would be the time that you could offer up a resource card if it's provided for you. So we'd like to review your responsibilities as a surveyor. You're responsible for asking people the questions as they're written and approaching them and identifying yourself as a volunteer. If you do have a resource card, you can definitely hand it out. And if you have any concerns, talk to your point of contact or your lead at your survey site or on your unsheltered outreach. Same thing if you have any questions. Please, please, please arrive for your volunteer shift regardless of the weather. We're predicting that the weather is going to be okay. We're not expecting a blizzard this year, but in years past when the weather has gotten a little iffy, we've had volunteers no-show. And what that means is people don't get counted. So we really encourage you to show up regardless of the weather. We're going to send out a contingency plan in the event that there is a blizzard, because many of our street outreach workers are going to have to go into a different mode where they're not going to be able to survey. They're really just going to have to get people inside and safe. So expect by Thursday, right before the point in time, in the event that problematic weather is expected, that you'll receive an email with any contingency information. Otherwise, please arrive for your volunteer shift. Things you're not responsible for. You don't have to respond to anyone's questions about housing or services if they have like concerns or comments that you're not able to handle. You can definitely have them talk to your lead. You don't have to provide anyone with direct assistance, or if they ask for money, you're not needing to find someone a place to stay. And especially if you're doing outreach, you're not required to go out of your placement area to do a survey. So we want to explain to you as a volunteer why we ask for some personal information so that you can share that with someone who's being surveyed in case they have any concerns. So the only reason why we ask for that combination of letters of their name and their date of birth is to help with deduplication of the data set. All of the data that we report to HUD is aggregated. So the only way we use that personal information is for deduplication. So people don't have to worry about any of their responses being connected to their personal information. Data quality is really important. We put in a lot of effort just for this one day out of the year. And so we really want to make sure that the surveys that we're conducting throughout the community are as accurate as possible. So some absolutely must answer questions on the survey are: where did you sleep last night? And those fields around the deduplication, the personal information. If other questions aren't answered, we sometimes can use that data, but we really encourage you to fill it out as completely as possible if people are willing to answer all those questions. Before you turn in your surveys to your lead or your point of contact, please review them and make sure everything is legible if they're the paper survey, and circle or initial if you make any errors on the survey so we know which is the corrected version if you're using the paper survey. If you're using the mobile survey, which we hope most of you are using, please just make sure that that stuff looks accurate prior to pressing submit. The best thing about the mobile survey is we don't have to worry about illegibility or correcting a mistake and not knowing which one is the correct answer. For those of you that are helping us with the unsheltered count, you'll be paired up with a team lead as well as potentially some other volunteers who are more experienced or who are seasoned professionals in doing street outreach. Prior to going out to the specific sites, they're going to be the ones that will check in, let you know your zones or where you're supposed to be going, as well as debriefing at the end. So please make sure, if you're able to, get their phone number as well as any meeting points. They are always the first go-to person for questions or an emergency. A thing to note about the unsheltered count: some people who are living outside don't consider themselves as homeless. So even if you see them sleeping in a tent, they might identify that they have a place to stay. So use other language when interviewing. So don't say, hey, we're out here looking for homeless folks. Say, hey, we're out here looking for anybody who's sleeping outside. If there's an issue, such as someone who's escalating or aggressive, just walk away. Check in with your team lead and let them know what happened. When you're approaching a camp, hopefully you're bringing a flashlight with you when you're doing the unsheltered count, but when you're approaching a camp, face that flashlight down and announce yourself about 25 feet away with something like, hey campers, or surveyors here, just so that people know and they're not startled. The flashlights are typically what people who are out in camps see when law enforcement is involved, so we don't want to scare people away thinking that you're law enforcement. So just let people know and announce yourself, make yourself known if you are out in those areas. So once again, all about our security. None of the individual data is used, it's all aggregated and reported. Any of the potentially identifying information, such as the first three letters of their first name, first three letters of their last name, is used for deduplication, not for identifying people. Those surveys, after you provide them to your lead, the lead will get them to us by the end of the week. We upload the information by manual entry if it's a paper survey, but again, if you can use the mobile version, it's much easier, it's much more secure. And then after we've uploaded that information, we destroy those surveys. We don't keep them. So here's the place where it's really important that you've reviewed the confidentiality agreement, which is again on the MDHI Everyone Counts website. The leads and point of contact should have examples of these, but since you are doing the web version of this training, it's really important that you sign those and get them to us either prior to the point in time, or you can sign them on site. So, what to expect? You've already signed up, you're attending the training session, so 48 hours prior to the count, you're going to receive an email with some really specific information, such as your lead, their contact information, where you need to go, and anything else you need to know about your shift. The day of the point in time, we ask that you arrive a couple minutes early, 30 minutes if it's a place you don't know, and it takes you some time to find. Otherwise, just check in with the point of contact when you arrive and check out with them when you leave. Please turn in all survey and materials, including your buttons, into the lead or the point of contact and address any questions with them. After the point in time count, you're going to receive an evaluation survey via email. We'd love you to complete it as we take that survey really seriously. Last year, we took all of the information from our evaluation and actually started working in April of 2017 on things we can do to improve the 2018 point in time count. Finally, we'd love it if you share your experience with family and friends. One of the best things about the point in time is everybody across the community coming together, including people who aren't always working with this population. So it would be great if you can share with people what you saw and how important the issues of homelessness and housing are in our community. Also use that network in the event that you experience any secondary trauma, because sometimes you might witness or see something that stays with you. And it's really great to debrief with your community in order to make sure you feel comfortable moving forward. So, the key takeaways from everything I've talked about. Fill out as much of the survey as possible, prioritize your safety and trust your gut. When in doubt, ask your point of contact or team lead. The point in time volunteer role is to administer surveys. You don't have to provide assistance. There's a lot of opportunities the other 364 days out of the year if you're interested in volunteering or doing direct service work. And finally, try to use the web version of the survey first and have paper copies as a backup. So you'll be getting an email from us. Remember to dress for the weather. It's January in Colorado, so anything can happen. If you need any other information, you can email us at pit@mdhi.org and invite any of your friends to join in our effort as well. The link to sign up, as well as all the information you need regarding the Everyone Counts point in time count, is listed right there. Finally, if you have any questions related to the volunteer sign-up, you can contact the folks at Mile High United Way through the GivePulse website. If you have questions about the point in time itself, you can reach us at MDHI by emailing pit@mdhi.org. We welcome any questions, concerns, and suggestions. Again, we thank you so much for your participation in the 2018 Everyone Counts effort. We could not do this without you.